Hi, my name is Lydia Vazquez, and I live in Melbourne, Florida. My husband and I were in the military from 1967 to 98. I did military nursing for several years back in 93 to 98. And while I was in the military, I was getting a lot of pain throughout my muscles, my legs, my neck especially. And it was that shawl type pain. And about 4 years later, I developed this rash on my face, and everybody thought it was rosacea. But I am dark, so I said, dark people don't get rosacea. That's kind of dumb, right? Anyway, so they kept saying, oh, well, it's probably some nervousness, or you need to get unstressed, and the doctor said that on base, he said, well, it's cleanliness, because my fingers were purplish, and I had that myositis rash, the dermatomyositis rash. But nobody knew what it was, and they kept thinking that I was having some psychological situation. To make a long story short, one day, and also the rash started hurting me a lot, and it was my eyes. I could hardly, because I was getting photosensitivity, and I went to a dermatologist, and he said, "Did you ever have your RA tested?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what for." He says, "Well, let me go ahead and do it." So when he did, he had to send my test away, and then when he got the results back, he said that like my myofrin was like 800 and something, was supposed to be only 80. Then my CPKs were like out there in the thousands. And by this time, I was really having a hard time walking and driving to work. I had to lift my legs out to get out of the car, and I said, what the world's going on? I was dragging myself to work and from work and into bed and out of bed. Anyway, so finally the dermatologist told me that he suspected it was DM, or dermatomyositis. But it was like, even in being a nurse, I had no idea what that was. I had never heard of it. So when the roomie saw me, the rheumatologist, and that was in Vero Beach, he said, "You're really sick." And I said, "Yeah, I know, I feel real bad." So he says, "Well, you have to have a muscle biopsy so that we can conclude that this is what it is, a myositis." And then he gave me the sheet of paper with all this information. I had no idea what he's talking about. And this was like around Christmas time in 2002. And I had to go visit my daughter in Texas, Killeen, Texas. And then that one day, I said, "You know, I feel so bad. What's wrong with me?" And I went to bed that night, and during that night, I was laying on my stomach, and I couldn't get out of bed. I thought I was having a stroke. So then I couldn't put my pants up or take them down because my fingers hurt so bad. So I called my doctor, and she said, "Take some prednisone that she had given me just in case I needed it, and come back to Melbourne." And I came back, did my biopsy, and within a couple of weeks, I wasn't walking anymore. So I was stuck in a wheelchair for about 2.5 years. I went to rehab to learn how to walk again. Well, at first they put me on intensive prednisone, and then they put me on methotrexate, and then they gave me Imuron. Well, the methotrexate, I just vomited for like 6 months, and then I was gaining weight like you wouldn't believe. I gained 30 pounds within a month, and it was like, oh my God, I looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy. It was horrible. You know, the image, my self-image was really bad. Emotionally, I was like out, it was rough. For the first year, it was really rough for my doctors to get me on track. It almost like I would read the signs in their face, like they were giving up on me, because no medication was working. Everything was, but they never tried me on the IVIG. And of course, at that time in 2002, 3 time frame, that stuff was just coming out, and people were just talking about it. And my doctor says, "Well, I reserve that for people that are on vents, on the ventilators, or really, really downhill real bad." I mean, I was down there, but not as bad as other people. So he never put me on IVIG. I wanted to go on clinical trials, but he said, "I don't want you to do that because I want you to have the right, I want you to have the real meds. I don't want you to have placebos." Look, I said, with a lot of therapy, a lot of support. My church was very supportive. My husband, he was like my rock, really. He took care of me to the max.